Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him, because they do not know the voice of strangers. Now Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life, and have it abundantly.
Well, good morning everyone, and if you're joining us online for the first time this morning, a special welcome to you today. I wonder, how are you finding this lockdown which we're currently in? I know from speaking to people that there's a whole range of responses and emotions that people are feeling right now. Some of us are bored. Some of us are lonely. Some of us are missing family and friends. Some of us are still very busy and feeling the pressure of that. Some of us, perhaps the introverts, are really quite enjoying the enforced solitude of the lockdown. Some of us are going through a whole range of emotions on a daily basis. Contentment, frustration, feelings of loss and joy and aimlessness, all in one day. I wonder, how are you finding the lockdown? Can you identify with any of those? I want to talk this morning about Jesus' words in our gospel reading today, and to apply them to where we find ourselves right now. I particularly want to talk about voices and who in this lockdown we are listening to. I wonder what voices you hear each day at the moment. Do you have the radio on a lot for background noise for people? Or do you have the TV on for the same reason? Do you speak to people on the telephone or on the computer? Have you used Zoom yet? Perhaps you tune in daily for the 5 p.m. news briefing from the government, wanting to hear the latest update on how things are going. Or are you using this opportunity to work through that pile of books that you've had but never got round to reading? If you live with others, I guess you're having to listen to them as well, perhaps more than you would normally, while we mostly all stay at home. What voices are you listening to in the lockdown? For me, most days I listen to the BBC coronavirus newscast. It's a BBC podcast, and that helps keep me up to date with the latest virus news. And at the moment, of course, I have to listen to my family as well, because we're all at home together a lot of the time. I can't escape them. In our gospel reading today, Jesus talks about listening to his voice. And I wonder if you're using this lockdown time to listen to the voice of Jesus more. In that reading from this morning's Gospel, Jesus uses what would have been to his first hearers an incredibly familiar image, the image of a shepherd and his sheep. Now, Jesus doesn't say here in our reading, "I am the good shepherd." That's in the next verses. But that's the image Jesus is going for. Jesus is the shepherd, and his people are the sheep, the ones who he is looking after, responsible for. Listen to these words again. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Now, as of so much when we read the Bible, we need to understand what's being said, and to do that we need to think ourselves back into the world in which this was written. In this case, we need to think ourselves back into the world of the 1st century AD. Back then, at night, shepherds would gather their sheep in a sheepfold to keep them safe. And lots of different shepherds would put their sheep in the same pen for ease and for strength of number. But of course, when it came to the following morning, whose sheep were whose? How does the shepherd know he's got his sheep and not someone else's? Well, it turns out that the sheep aren't as stupid as sometimes we think they are. The sheep, says Jesus, recognise their shepherd. They hear him calling their name. They recognise their shepherd's voice and they follow him out. And Jesus takes this familiar image and applies it to him and to his followers. It's the same with me, says Jesus. My sheep, my people, they know my voice and they follow me. Now Jesus, in using this picture of sheep and shepherd, was saying, look, there are so many people you could listen to, but my people listen to me. It's not so different for us today in our world where we are, even in lockdown. Right now, there are so many voices we could listen to. And today, our technology allows those voices to come right into our homes every single day. Politicians, scientists, journalists, celebrities, bloggers, YouTubers, even vicars, and many more. Even in lockdown, we can fill our ears with voice after voice after voice. But today, and I speak to those of us who are Christians, we are Jesus people. Above all those other voices we could listen to, we should be listening to him. And I wonder, and this is a question for each of us to answer, how much time do you take to listen to the voice of Jesus? And I wonder, in this lockdown, are you taking the opportunity, if you have it, to listen to Jesus more? In these last few days, few weeks, we have completely had to rethink how we do church. What does it mean for us to be a church community when we cannot physically meet? At St. Faith's, as you know, we've started online services. We've set up a telephone pastoral network for people who aren't online. We're sending out booklets of daily reflections. We're saying morning and evening prayer together on Facebook. We've done a lot in these last 5 or 6 weeks, and we will do more in the future, I am sure. I have to say, personally for me, it's been a very, very busy time. Setting up all this new stuff has been a big job. As the vicar, even though we can't physically meet, it's still my responsibility to help lead and guide us as a community, even in the lockdown. But every so often, I have to take a step back and remind myself that the ultimate responsibility for your spiritual growth, for your walk with God, lies not with me, but with you. It's your responsibility to listen to the voice of Jesus. And there are things I can help with that, but there are things that you have to do for yourselves. The spiritual disciplines of prayer and Bible reading and meditation and silence and maybe even fasting, they can be done when we meet together physically as a church, but they can also be done as well on our own. And I encourage you to do these things during this strange lockdown time we find ourselves in. You see, Jesus says, "My sheep know my voice." But I just sometimes wonder how much we are listening to him, even those of us who say we are Christians. I have a hunch, and I may be completely wrong with this, that many of us at St. Faith's don't pick up and read our Bible from one week to the next. I have a hunch that many of us don't have a pattern of prayer that sustains us day by day. My hunch is that many of us think that regular Bible reading and daily prayer, these are the things that the keen people do, the people who are really into this God thing. Those are the things for them. But that's not true. Bible reading and prayer, these things should be our basic bread and butter as Christians. These things should be the basic stuff of our lives, because they are how we listen to Jesus, how we learn to recognize his voice. I have a feeling that for many of us, our Christianity is often centered around going to church on Sundays and what we do there. And guess what? We can't do that right now, and we may not be able to for some time. So my question to all of us in the church community is now, how are you going to sustain your spiritual walk in lockdown? What are you going to do to continue your walk with God, to grow in faith, to listen to Jesus' voice? This week, we have sent Bible reading notes to many of the children and young people in the church community, because we want to help them engage with God while they are at home. And parents, please do read these notes with your younger children and encourage your older children to read them for themselves each day. But what about us adults? What are we going to do at this time to listen to the voice of Jesus? There are so many ways today that we can do that. Bible reading notes, books which go through the Bible bit by bit, prayer apps that you can get on your phone, podcasts that you can download and listen to. You can join us for morning and evening prayer every day. Or why not phone a friend and pray together, or read the Bible together over Zoom? There are so much we can do. We need, as Jesus people, to be constantly listening for his voice. There are so many ways we can do that. The question isn't for us, how can I do this? The question for many of us is, can I be bothered? Is this important enough for me to do? Now, if you claim to be a Christian today, I hope the answer for you is yes, this is important for me. Jesus in our reading uses this image of shepherd and sheep. He is the shepherd, we are the sheep, and out of all the voices that we could listen to in the world, the one that we should be paying most attention to is his voice. We need to learn as Christians to listen to his voice, to recognize it, to pick the voice of Jesus out amongst all the voices that we listen to each day. When he calls us by name, we need to learn to hear him and to follow him. Jesus says that he came to bring life abundantly to his people. But he only does that if we follow him. Like the shepherd, he's taking the sheep from the sheepfold out to the good grass, to the water that they need to drink. He's leading them from this place of safety out to get the food and drink that they need. Well, Jesus will lead us to get the spiritual food and drink that we need as well. But to do that, we need to listen to his voice. Will you use this lockdown time to listen more to the voice of Jesus, the one who is our shepherd?